I wish to thank His Excellency Yoon Suk Yeol and the government of Korea for the kind invitation to attend this first Korea-Africa Summit. Korea is a clear example of what can happen when vision is matched with determination and a resolve to develop with resilience against all odds. The Hunan River miracle was powered by Korea's determination to develop with pride. From being a poor and aid-dependent country, Korea has transformed itself into one of the largest donor countries in the world. The Korea-Africa Summit today therefore offers an inspiration for a renewed cooperation for shared prosperity with Africa. The African Development Bank is a strong partner of Korea. We co-organize the Korea-Africa Economic Cooperation Ministerial Conference, COAFEC. At its 7th meeting, Korea announced $6 billion of support to Africa. The Korea-Africa Energy Investment Framework, signed with the African Development Bank in 2021, established a $600 million joint and parallel co-financing facility for renewable energy projects. We have jointly approved the first two projects, $57 million for the Kenya Transmission Network Improvement Project and $52 million for Eastern Ethiopia electricity grid reinforcement. The COAFEC Trust Fund, with a total of $115.4 million, is the largest bilateral trust fund at the African Development Bank. Korea has been a member of the African Development Bank since 1982 and has contributed to close to $795 million to the bank, the African Development Fund, and the Korea Trust Fund. You are investing in the right institution, the African Development Bank. 2 years ago, the African Development Bank was ranked as the best multilateral financial institution in the world. Last year, the African Development Bank was ranked as the most transparent financial institution in the world. The African Development Bank is responding to G20 calls for reforms of the global financial architecture. The African Development Bank's globally acclaimed launch of $750 million hybrid capital on the global capital markets, the first ever by a multilateral financial institution, has created a new asset class for investors globally. The African Development Bank and the Inter-American Development Bank's model for rechallenging special drawing rights of the IMF to multilateral development banks, which allows these SDRs to be leveraged by 4 times, is a game changer for global development. The recent approval by the IMF board to use the SDRs of up to $20 billion for hybrid capital, as championed by the African Development Bank, will have immense impact on our world. That $20 billion can be transformed by leverage of our AAA rating into $80 billion. To show solidarity with Africa for the future we make together, I wish to request that Korea solidifies this Korea-Africa Summit by agreeing to rechannel the special drawing rights from Korea to the African Development Bank. The African Development Bank is today a global financial institution, taking Africa to the world and bringing the world to Africa. Last week, the annual meetings of the African Development Bank, hosted by President William Ruto and the government of Kenya, their shareholders of the bank approved another historic $117 billion increase in the capital of the bank. This raises the capital of the African Development Bank from our already historic high of $201 billion to $318 billion. I wish to thank all shareholders, all the countries here present, African and non-African, including Korea, for their exceptional support. We will be bigger, bolder, and better in accelerating Africa's development. As we now look towards the 17th replenishment of the African Development Fund, President Ruto has called for a bold target of $25 billion for the fund. He made more than a call. He pledged $20 million to the fund, the highest by any African country. President Samia Suluhu Hassan of Tanzania has called for a special facility of $12 billion under the ADF 17 replenishment to support universal access of women to clean cooking energy. We count on Korea to significantly scale up its support for the successful 17th replenishment of the African Development Fund. Korea, we ask you also support the Alliance for Green Infrastructure in Africa, which is developed by the African Development Bank, Africa 50, and the African Union to mobilize $10 billion of private capital for green infrastructure in Africa. As I close, I want to say that we must tap into the creativity and entrepreneurship of our youth to support Africa's burgeoning young entrepreneurs and to connect them to young technopreneurs from Korea. We propose from the bank that Korea and Africa establish a Korea-Africa Technology Core. This core, a Korea-Africa Technology Core, will support young technopreneurs, exchange between Korea and Africa, form joint ventures, which can be supported by a jointly established technology private equity fund, which can be established between Korea and the African Development Bank. These kinds of scaled-up support by Korea will accelerate collective commitment to shared growth, sustainability, and solidarity for the future we will build together. A future where Africa achieves higher growth and faster-paced development. A future where Korea's dream of a global pivotal state meets with Africa as a global pivotal continent. Let's grow together. Let's prosper together. Thank you very much.